Okay, we're going to begin 12.6, drawing quadrilaterals. Our essential question is, how can you draw quadrilaterals? So you have learned to classify quadrilaterals by the number of pairs of opposite sides that are parallel, by the number of pairs of sides that are equal length, and by the number of right angles. So how can you draw quadrilaterals? So we can use grid paper to draw quadrilaterals. Grid paper is the paper with the boxes. We would need a ruler to draw line segments from point A to point B, from B to C, from C to D, and from D to A. So first we're going to go from A to B, and if you don't have a ruler, that's okay. You can just use this line, like I am. Then we go from B to C, then from C to D, then from D to A. So we ask ourselves, what is this quadrilateral? So looking at this quadrilateral, first thing I'm going to ask is how many pairs of parallel sides do I have? So in this case, we only have one pair, which is this line and this line. So we have one pair. So if we have one pair with only two right angles and not all the sides are equal in length, this would be a trapezoid. So next we're going to draw a shape that does not belong. So here are three examples of a quadrilateral. Draw an example of a polygon that is not a quadrilateral. So quadrilaterals are shapes that have four sides and four angles. So all we need to do is draw a polygon that is not four sides and four angles. So yours might be different than mine, and that's fine. So I'm just going to draw a triangle because that is not a quadrilateral. Explain why your polygon is not a quadrilateral. A triangle is not a quadrilateral because it has three sides and angles. So a triangle is not a quadrilateral because it has three sides and angles. So that'll make it a triangle, not a quadrilateral. Okay, up next, it says, here we have our three examples of a square. Draw a quadrilateral that is not a square. So remember that a square needs to have two pairs of opposite sides that are parallel. All the sides are equal in length and right angles. So we just need to have a shape that does not have one of these qualities. So I'm going to go ahead and make a rectangle. Because that is not a square because of the fact that it does not have all the side lengths equal. Explain why your quadrilateral is not a square. Rectangles have two sides that are longer than the other two sides. So rectangles have two sides that are longer than the other two sides. Here are three examples of a rectangle. Draw a quadrilateral that is not a rectangle. So in this case, you just have to draw a shape what makes a rectangle is that it has two pairs of opposite sides that are parallel, and it has 4 right angles, and it has 2 pairs of opposite sides that are equal in length. So I'm going to draw a trapezoid, because a trapezoid only has 1 pair of parallel lines. So that is not a rectangle. So a trapezoid only has 1 pair of opposite sides that are parallel. It says, here are 3 examples of a rhombus. Draw a quadrilateral that is not a rhombus. So a rhombus only requires that it has 2 pairs of opposite sides that are parallel and all the side lengths that are the same length. So I'm going to draw something that is a quadrilateral that does not have the same length and does not have 2 pairs of opposite sides. So I'm going to work on more the length. So that could be this, which is also considered a trapezoid. So again, why? Because a trapezoid only has 1. Okay, and we're gonna skip this because we're not gonna compare our drawings to our classmates. And there you go. Okay, for this next question, you had to choose 4 endpoints and connect them to make a rectangle. Think, a rectangle has 2 pairs of opposite sides that are parallel, 2 pairs of sides that are equal length, and 4 right angles. So I'm gonna just select these most outer points to make my rectangle, and it's okay that I have that point there in the middle. It's fine. So those were the 4 points that I decided to make my rectangle, and there it is. So next we had to draw a quadrilateral that is described. Name the quadrilateral you drew. So 2 pairs of opposite sides that are equal in length. So 2 pairs of opposite sides that are equal in length doesn't mean that all the sides are equal in length. So 2 pairs of opposite sides that are equal in length, that means 1 pair could be long and 1 pair could be short. So if we did that, we would get a rectangle. Now 4 sides of equal length, that could be either a rhombus or a square because all the sides are equal. So either or, doesn't matter. I'm going to draw a square. Square. Or a rhombus, that's fine too. Explain one way that quadrilaterals you drew are alike and one way they are different. So they're both quadrilaterals. They both have 2 pairs of opposite sides that are parallel. They both have 4 right angles. So there's lots of things I could say about these 2 shapes. Now I want you to go ahead and pause the video and continue the on your own work. Come back to the video when you're done checking, or when you're ready to check. Okay, So next is the on your own. You had to practice, copy, and solve. It says use grid paper to draw a quadrilateral that is described. Name the quadrilateral you drew. Okay, so if you don't have grid paper, that's fine. I don't have grid paper either, so I'm just gonna write the name of the shape that you should have drawn or could have drawn. So exactly one pair of opposite sides that are parallel. So exactly only one pair, that could only be a trapezoid. And your trapezoid could look something like this. Okay, 4 right angles. So 4 right angles could be, it could be a rhombus, it could be a square, or it could be a rectangle. Any, and actually it could also be a trapezoid, really. So any of those shapes are fine. So there, 4 right angles. I drew one. And again, the answers could be rectangle, could be square, could be rhombus, and it could be trapezoid, because trapezoid, the only requirement is that it has one pair of opposite sides that are parallel. So in this case, we have 2 pairs, so we do fulfill that requirement of it having only at least one. 2 pairs of opposite sides that are equal in length. So again, that could be honestly all 4 of them. It could be, you could have drawn a rectangle, but your answers could be rectangle, could be square, could be trapezoid, and it could be rhombus. Draw a quadrilateral that does not belong, then explain why. So I have to look at all of these. So I have a square, I have a rhombus, and I have a rectangle. So the only one that I could think of that would not belong to this group could be a trapezoid. So there's a trapezoid right there. And why does it not belong? Because all of these have 2 pairs, and this one only has 1 pair of parallel lines. Okay. And for the next one, I have a rectangle, a square, and a square or rhombus. And this could also be considered a square or a rhombus. So I can do, they all have right angles. So I'm going to say a shape that does not have right angles. So I'm going to do one like this. Okay, so they have 4 right angles. Mine doesn't. Okay, next it says to make arguments. It says Jackie drew the shape at the right. She said that it is a rectangle because it has 2 pairs of opposite sides that are parallel. Describe her error. So it's telling you that there is an error. This is the shape it's talking about. So we have to figure out what is her error. She said that it's a rectangle because it has 2 pairs of opposite sides that are parallel. So first I'm going to count the number of sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have 6 sides and 6 angles. So that means that it's not even a quadrilateral. It's a hexagon because it has 6. So that alone tells me that it's not a rectangle. Next, it says Adam drew 3 quadrilaterals. One quadrilateral has no pairs of parallel sides. One quadrilateral has exactly 1 pair of opposite sides that are parallel. And the last quadrilateral has 2 pairs of opposite sides that are parallel. Draw the 3 quadrilaterals that Adam could have drawn and name them. So the first one is a quadrilateral, which means that it has 4 sides, 4 angles, but it has no pairs of parallel sides. So if it has no pairs of parallel sides, that means that it's just a quadrilateral. So that means none of the lines are gonna line up nicely. So we have to make sure that when we draw it, that we draw a shape where there are no parallel sides. So if there's no parallel sides, but there are 4 sides and 4 angles, that just means it's a quadrilateral, just a quadrilateral. The next one, it says that it has exactly 1 pair of opposite sides that are parallel. So if it has exactly 1 pair, that means we know that he made a trapezoid. All right, and so you're gonna just draw that 1 pair of opposite sides that are parallel. And there's our trapezoid. And the last one says that the last quadrilateral has 2 pairs of opposite sides that are parallel. So that could be a rectangle, that could be a square, and that could be a rhombus. So any one of those answers are fine. So I'm going to draw a rectangle. But if you drew a rhombus or a square, that's okay too. For this last one. Okay, up next it says Amy has 4 straws of equal length. Name all the quadrilaterals that can be made using these 4 straws. So if they're all equal in length, she definitely can make a square, because square has all equal in length. She can make a rhombus, because that's all equal in length. And the next 2 might surprise you. She could be making a trapezoid, because a trapezoid only requires at least 1 pair of opposite sides that are parallel, which she can have 2 pairs. So in this case, a trapezoid is okay because of the fact that the minimum is at least 1 pair. And she could also be making a rectangle, because a rectangle just needs 2 sides, 2 opposite sides that are of the same length. So if they're all the same length, that no matter what side she goes to, they're all going to be equal in length. So a rectangle is also something she could make. Amy cuts one of the straws in half. So we're going to pretend that we cut one of the straws in half. And she uses the 2 halves and 2 of the other straws to make a quadrilateral. Now name all the quadrilaterals that can be made using these 4 straws. So she's only going to be using 4. So she's cut one in half. So that means these 2 sides are going to be shorter and these 2 sides are going to be long. So she can no longer make a square, because a square has to have all the sides of equal length. And she can no longer be making a rhombus either, because a rhombus also has to have all the sides are equal in length. And now that she cut these 2 in half, not all of the straws are going to be the same length. There's going to be 2 that are shorter. So the only ones that she could make at this point could be a rectangle and a trapezoid, because a trapezoid only requires at least a minimum of 1 pair of opposite sides that are parallel, and her shape will still at least have 2. The last one is Jordan drew 1 side of a quadrilateral with 2 pairs of opposite sides that are parallel. Draw the other 3 sides to complete Jordan's quadrilateral. So in this case, we have 1 side, so we know that the opposite side needs to be exactly where it is, so I'm just gonna continue drawing. I'm gonna draw, see, this way, and I'm gonna try my best to draw it exactly. It might not be exact. And then something like that. It's hard, so if it's not perfect, it's okay. So as long as you did a quadrilateral and you tried your best to make it two pairs of opposite sides that are parallel, you did fine. Now on to homework. Okay, for homework we had to draw a quadrilateral that is described and name the quadrilateral you drew. So the first one was done for you. Always has four sides of equal length. So that could be considered a square or a rhombus because they need four sides that are equal in length. Here it says only one pair of opposite sides that are parallel. So that would be a trapezoid. A trapezoid would have one pair of opposite sides that are parallel. Next, it says to draw a quadrilateral that does not belong, then explain why. So looking at these, we have a rectangle, a square, and a rhombus. So they all have two pairs of opposite sides that are parallel. So I'm going to draw a trapezoid because that only has one pair, or only needs one pair. So there's my trapezoid. So a trapezoid only needs one pair of opposite sides that are parallel, where the rest of them have two pairs. Okay, next, Layla drew a quadrilateral with four right angles and two pairs of opposite sides that are parallel. What quadrilateral best describes her drawing? So, four right angles and two pairs of opposite sides that are parallel could be something like this. So she could have drawn either a rectangle, because rectangles require those two things, or a square, because a square requires those two things. The reason I did not put rhombus is because not all rhombuses require four right angles. So I did not include rhombus in that for that reason. Rhombuses do not require four right angles. And it said which quadrilateral best describes her drawing. It says draw a quadrilateral that is not a rectangle. Describe your shape and why it is not a rectangle. So I'm just going to draw a trapezoid because that's the easiest one that is definitely not a rectangle. And the why, it only has one pair of opposite sides that are parallel. Or one pair. Okay. And for the last page. Okay, for the last page it says Chloe drew a quadrilateral with two pairs of opposite sides that are parallel. Name all the shapes that could be Chloe's quadrilateral. So as long as it has two pairs of opposite sides that are parallel, that could be all of them. So it could be a rectangle. It could be a square. It could be a rhombus. Oops. And it could be a trapezoid because trapezoids only require at least one pair, and this one says that it has two, so it could be a trapezoid because trapezoids could have two pairs. They only need a minimum of one. Mike drew a quadrilateral with 4 right angles. Name all the shapes that he could have drawn. So in this case, it could be all of them too, because trapezoids could have 4 right angles if they were drawn that way. So a rectangle and a square for sure, because those must have right angles. But it could be a rhombus because some rhombuses might have right angles. And it could be trapezoids because some trapezoids could have 4 right angles. Although those are not requirements, they could have them. What is the name of a quadrilateral that always has 4 right angles and 4 sides of equal length? So always 4 right angles and always the sides 4 equal lengths. That's a square. Okay. A rhombus doesn't always have to have right angles, and a rectangle doesn't have all 4 sides equal in length. Mark drew 2 lines that form a right angle. What words describe the lines Mark drew? So if he drew a right angle, you can consider these 2 lines are intersecting because they're touching each other, and they are also forming that right angle. So not only are they touching and intersecting, they're also perpendicular. Perpendicular. Sorry about that. Perpendicular because they are making the right angle. So intersecting because they're touching, and perpendicular because they're touching and they're making a right angle. Dennis drew the rectangle on the grid paper. What is the perimeter of the rectangle Dennis drew? So perimeter, we need to add all the sides. So here we have 3, 4, 3, 4. So we're going to do 3 plus 3 plus 4 plus 4, okay, which gives us 14 units. And then here it says Jill drew the rectangle on the grid paper. What is the area of the rectangle Jill drew? So that's multiplication. So we're going to do 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So times 5. So 3 times 5 equals 15 square units. And that's the homework.